In this video, you will learn if the high carb or moderate carb diets can be a healthy and viable options. And if so, what are those scenarios? So let's get straight into it. First of all, we should state definitely that carbohydrate intake can only be really healthy and safe when insulin stays low. So that would be the first condition. You must be metabolically healthy to tolerate carbohydrates. That requires either extreme insulin sensitivity, high physical activity, or both. For people with metabolic dysfunction, let alone proven insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, carbs are problematic to say the least. But let me get specific when they are not. First scenario, athletes and highly physically active people. If you're training hard 30 to 60 minutes a day of hard resistance training or endurance training, your muscles become glucose sinks. They pull glucose without needing much insulin because exercise suppresses insulin acutely through sympathetic activation. There are some very highly active individuals eating 200-300 grams of carbohydrates daily and still waking up in ketosis next morning because they have simply burned it all. Although, to be fair, that is not a level of activity and efficiency easy to attain. The working muscle has a magic property. It can pull glucose without an insulin spike. So the more active you are, the more carbs you can tolerate and still stay metabolically healthy. Especially if you consume your carbs around your workouts, let's say pre-workout or after you finish. So how active must you be? Well, that's highly individualized. Someone doing extreme resistance training 4 to 5 times a week or endurance work regularly can likely handle moderate carbs, easily 50 to 100 grams of carbs after the workout without denting the metabolic health. Someone sedentary simply cannot. Second scenario, severely underweight or post-recovery patients. If someone is recovering from severe illness, an accident, injury or malnutrition, higher calorie intake is non-negotiable. Could they do it on low-carb, keto or carnivore? Absolutely. A high-fat, high-protein works just fine. However, some people psychologically or just practically need carbs to hit their calorie targets. The risk is manageable if they are insulin sensitive and moving their bodies as recovery allows. They must be careful though, because attaining their goal of putting on weight could easily come with the side effect of wrecking their metabolic health. The third curious scenario, the sugar diet. As absurd as it sounds, in some scenarios a thing as a sugar diet may show some positive outcomes short term, that's for sure. So what is the case? The sugar diet, very high carb, very low fat and almost nothing of protein, and that's critical, shows surprising outcomes in the research. A 2025 study in young, healthy, athletic males showed that when protein drops to around 9 maximum % of their diet regarding calories, FGF21 surges. It is a hormone produced in the liver. As it surges, it drives mitochondrial uncoupling and fat burning. Even with high carbs, they needed to eat 20% more calories than usual just to maintain their body weight, because they were burning so much energy as heat. But here's the deal. I've used it rather as an interesting exception. Here's why it probably doesn't apply to you, or to be frank, long term to absolutely nobody. This only worked in lean, healthy, highly disciplined men with no history of addictive eating. For people with insulin resistance, poor self-control around carbs, especially refined ones, or with addictive eating patterns, that high carb approach produces hunger spikes and binging cycles that undo all the benefits. The neurobiology is clear. Carbohydrates are the common variable in food addiction across practically every human study that it touches. And to be clear, even these highly disciplined individuals in the study could not maintain this diet approach long-term without straining their health. Glycation is an issue. Insulin sensitivity would inevitably worsen on such approach, especially with any decrease in their activity. And importantly, such model would be extremely deficient in both essential nutritious fats and protein. So the effects long-term would be absolutely devastating, making this model absolutely unsustainable. Caveat number 1. Gender matters too. You may notice that the advocates of a very high carb approach are almost entirely lean, highly physically active men, mostly athletes. Finding women reporting the same success is notably harder, to say the least. That suggests sex-based metabolic differences, hard to back up with data, but certainly explainable considering the hormonal differences and mechanisms in women's body. To put it simple, it's way more fragile and diet-dependent than of men's. For women, dietary fats intake and proper metabolism is just even more important, to put it simple. Caveat number 2. You might think of electrolytes as an issue. Well, high carbs don't really solve that problem. In fact, it's basically the opposite. High insulin increases the sodium reabsorption in the kidneys. So when you're in low carb or fasting states, you lose that sodium and you need to replace it. Carbs don't fix that deficit. You just need adequate salt. If someone is deficient in electrolytes, especially on keto or low carb diets, the solution is just electrolytes, not more carbs. And yes, on the ketogenic diets, there might be some issues with electrolytes, but it's not from low insulin or low carbs per se. It's just the water retention is way lower, which in itself is a good thing, but it naturally increases the demanded frequency of electrolyte intake, to put it simple. So what do we make of it? Stay low carb or keto adapted unless you're genuinely highly active. Even then, monitor your markers: fasting insulin, glucose curve, body composition. Those tell the real story. Carbs are not essential. Protein and fats are. You don't need carbs to survive or thrive. So the burden of proof should be on them to prove they're worth it for your specific situation. In separate video, I will dive into my story of transition from traditional high-carb approach to low-carb ketogenic approach. If you find this video useful, please like, subscribe and turn on that notification button to be up to date with what I'm doing. For now, thank you very much for watching. My name is Szymon and I wish you a wonderful day and see you in the next one.